Hey. So I wanted to chat a little bit today about overthinking and worrying because I am a bit of an overthinker myself. I make decisions all the time that I go back to. It drives Robin crazy. And then I worry about certain things like my parents getting older and the fact that I'm not with them. I worry about our team at Pickup Lines. I wonder if they're kind of fulfilled and happy in what they're doing. And I wonder if I'm being a good, leader. And then I wonder about and worry about you guys. Like, am I sharing information with you in a way that you find helpful and valuable, or am I potentially just wasting your time? And then I worry about the fact that I worry. So as you can see, I kind of like overthink these things a lot. And I wonder where it came from because I don't think I was always this way. I think it's something that I've learned over time. It kind of feels like a learned behavior, a learned habit. And I feel like if you can learn it, then maybe you can unlearn it. So that's what I was hoping to chat about a bit today. Overthinking. Grab your cup of tea. Let's get started. I know worrying is just part of the human experience. I think evolutionarily, it was very protective in nature. We had to worry about finding food and shelter because it could mean the difference between life and death. But now the things that we commonly worry about, or at least that I worry about, are a lot less life-threatening. We worry about, do I look good, or am I fulfilled in the work that I do? And I feel like for much of human history, or even if you were just to look at animals, when it comes to thinking and worrying, it seems like there's an onset of the worry, like something that causes it, a trigger. And then there's an action, and then there's a resolution. So the worry itself is quite short-lived because of the action. So for example, you see a predator, and then you run away, and now you're safe. Or at least you're safe for the time being. But I feel like a lot of the things that we worry about in our modern age, they're about things that aren't necessarily resolvable right now. They're about things that are either really far into the distant future and quite intangible, or things that are entirely out of our control, or they're about hypothetical things. Like, I don't know if you do this too, but I feel like I make up these hypothetical scenarios in my mind all the time, and it can get pretty wild. I once read somewhere, my life is full of terrible things that never happened. And that summarizes my overthinking in a nutshell. And so because these things aren't resolvable right now, the overthinking tends to linger and last. And because there's no action, there's no resolution. And so we feel stuck in this very real and sometimes uncomfortable just feelings of discomfort, a discomfort that I think stems from feelings of uncertainty. We're trying to control the uncontrollable, which is the unknown of the future. And so I wonder too sometimes, like, why do we overthink? Is it our way of emotionally, physically, psychologically preparing ourselves for fear, loss, and failure? Because if we've already dealt with these negative emotions, hypothetically, maybe if it happens in reality, we'll be better suited to deal with it. I don't know. But I think that's also the problem with overthinking, is that because we're so stuck thinking about the future or something that we've done in the past, it really strips us and robs us of being here and kind of just being present right now and the things that are actually around us and the people that are around us. And so what I've been trying to do is, if I find myself in a cycle of overthinking, and if I have the moment to kind of question it, like, is this something I have control over or not? Those are the two options. If it's something I don't have control over and I recognize that, like, for example, worrying about someone else's behavior or a decision I've already made that's done and, said and done, it's in the past, I recognize that there's no point in kind of just continuing to think about it. So I try to distract myself and move on from it. There's a Roman philosopher, Seneca, who once said, there are more things that frighten us than injure us, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. He also said, a man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. And so that I really stuck with me, and I try to always remind myself of that there's no point in stewing in things that we can't control. But of course, it's easier said than done. So what I find helps me is if I just take a moment to do a brain dump and write it all out, because it also allows for a moment of reflection, which can be really helpful, but it gives me the opportunity to just kind of get it out off my chest and then move on from it, or I'll talk to someone about it. But I know what doesn't help is if I just keep it in my mind, because that's when the cyclical thinking kind of returns. So externalizing it and then moving on from it, I feel like it's a lot more constructive that way. Well, what if it's something that we do have control over, like for example, paying off student loans or a mortgage. I feel like the problem still is that it's too far in the future, and that makes it really easy to overthink things. And so what I think can help in these situations is if we find a way to measure it, because by measuring it, we're taking action and we're making the unknown a little bit known, at least for right now. I remember I first moved to the Netherlands, so I'm in a new country. I had to do bookkeeping and accounting. So new country, new language. Just started to pick up lines, so new business, new system, new way of doing things. Plus, I had like a mountain of student loans I had to pay off, and I had a mini panic attack. And Robin came to my aid. He tried to help me out and wrote things out. And honestly, seeing the numbers made me even more overwhelmed. And I started, again, doomsday thinking of like, this isn't going to work. I'm going to need to move back to Canada and I'm not going to be able to pay off my student loans. I was kind of freaking out. And so what he did was he took, again, this thing I was going to need to figure out over the long term and just made it a bit more short term and manageable and put it into action steps. And that changed kind of everything for me. It didn't solve the problem, but it made it a lot more clear. And if there's something you can physically do, then you tend to think a little less because you're busy doing. And so this is essentially just what I wanted to share, that I am someone who's an overthinker and that I try to put it into these two camps. I ask myself, do I have control over this? Or do I not have control over this? If I don't have control over it, I recognize that reflection can be quite helpful. So I try to externalize it by journaling or talking, but just not keeping it inside. And once I've had that moment of reflection, moving on from it, because again, I don't have control over it. And I know that's easier said than done. And then if it's something I do have control over, that I just try to take it from this long-term overwhelming thing to something a bit more short-term and manageable and measurable. Helps me feel like I'm taking action. I'm curious if you're someone who also overthinks things, and if you have any strategies that you've implemented that you find helps you, I'd love to know about it. So I'll see you in the comments. And if you haven't seen our video on living lightly, and if you enjoyed this video, I think you might like that too. So I'll link that for you here. And thanks so much for enjoying this cup of tea with me. I hope you have an awesome week, and see you in the next video.